Hello and welcome. If your model railway uses solenoid point motors, a bit like these ones that you can get from Gaugemaster, you may need to think about using a Capacitor Discharge Unit. A CDU can be used to level out the power that's delivered to your switches and ensure that you don't burn them out by leaving the switch thrown too long. An electrical charge is stored in the capacitors, and when you throw the switch, it releases all that energy in one lump. CDUs sell online for around £10 to £20, depending on the size of the capacitance. But in this video, I show you how you can save a little bit of cash and build your own. I hope you find this video useful, and if you do, please consider giving it a like. If you'd like to see me use this CDU in my own shunting layout currently in production, then hit that subscribe button and you'll be notified as soon as the videos are live. I've ordered this and it's come obviously in a bag, in pieces, so it's a case of putting this all together. So this has come from a company called rkeducation.co.uk. So I'm going to get the pieces out and we'll start to have a look at exactly what we have. So here are all the components now laid out on my table. I will try and list them, but I shall point to them using my Welsh Pool and Lanfair light railway pencil. Okay, so we have one bridge rectifier, we have an LED, an IN5407 diode. J1 and J3 are two-way 5mm terminal blocks, so that will be these ones here. We also have a 21mm DC socket. Then we have our two capacitors. We have a transistor, which I would assume is the three-legged jobby up in the top right corner here. We have three 1500 kilo resistors, which are the brown, green and red ones. And then we have one 10k resistor, which is brown, black and orange. Okay, that's all the parts. We need to get them onto this board here. And there is a nice diagram on how to do that with the kit. So let's get ahead and give it a go. So I have my soldering iron on and there we go. That's all working nicely, so we'll put that to the side. I also have a dead man if I need it, but I don't think I will, so I'm going to get rid of that for now. The first thing I'm going to do is tin the tip of my soldering iron, and I've got some solder here which I'll be using, so we'll just get that done first. Okay, I'm pretty much ready to go, so I'm going to start with J1 and J3, which are the contact points. So they're power in and power out, and those are basically these two components here. So they should theoretically slot in here and sit on the board a bit like that. So what I'll do is I'll get those in there, solder from the back side, and we'll see how we get on. Now, it's been a very, very long time since I've done any soldering. So I'm just going to heat up the element and, in effect, the metal on the board until I feel that there's enough temperature in there. Try not to move the component, and then I'm going to get ready with some solder. Okay, so that's the first one done. Give it a blow, let that cool off, and then let's jump on and do the second. Okay, that's the second one done. Okay, we're doing well. Just having a real close-up look there. That's a pretty good solder joint. That is definitely on there. Yeah, very happy with that. Okay, so I'm now going to move over to this one here and work on this side. So this one I've done incorrectly, so I've put the solder on the iron, which you shouldn't do, because then you get this effect where you can't actually get the solder off. So what I'm going to do is I'll clean that off on the sponge, and we'll come back, get some heat in there, a little bit of solder, there we go, blow the fumes away, pull that off, and that's looking good. Okay, so we have our two first components. We've got our input and our output. This one isn't quite square, not as good as the first one. This one went on really well, but I'm okay with that. I'm not that fussed, and I don't think it's going to cause an issue. Right, what I really want to do next is kind of focus on the resistors because they're quite small. We've also got the 10k resistor to go in here, so we're going to have a look at that one next, I think. So we have two resistors, or two types of resistors going onto this board. We've got a 1500 resistor, which is the brown, green and red, which is nearest the camera. That's this one just here. But then we also have the 10k resistor, which is brown, black and orange, and that's the one at the back. And this is the one we need to put in the middle of the board. So we're going to focus on this one first. Okay, so I've got that in position. You can see the brown, black and orange stripes there, so just double, and if you have to, triple check you're getting the right component in the right place. So push those through. I've left, if I flip it over, you'll just see the legs on. So what I'll do is I'll just make sure they're not touching. I'll solder these in position, and then we can snip off the excess once that's done. It's always best to do that than it is to snip it first, and then find that you don't actually have enough space or long enough legs to complete the task at hand. If there's one thing I do remember from school, that is you want to solder resistors fairly quickly. You don't want them to overheat. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a little bit of kitchen towel, kitchen paper, and just pack it underneath to make sure I've got that pushed tight to the board, and then I'm going to get my solder on here. Okay, that's really not too bad. I will say that the second one I did is probably a neater job than the first. I've left a bit too much solder on there, but I can snip that off, hopefully without cracking it. Flipping it over though, we did have a bit of overspill, and as you can see, some of the solder actually came through. But it's not in contact with anything else. As long as we stay away from this here, then this should be fine. Okay, let's have a look what component we need to look at next. So I think I'm going to tackle the next three resistors, R1, R2 and R3, and those are the previously shown brown, green and orange. Right, we are making some solid progress. That is the last of the three resistors set. I just need to cut the legs off, and as you can see they are all in position there. The last one wasn't my best work, it slipped and I did just soften it a bit, but I'm happy with that. They're all very rigid and in place, so I'm confident that the connections are good. I'm going to snip these legs off, and then we're going to move on to the next component, which I think should be the power port at the top here. Nice 3 prongs, very obvious. Let's give that a go. So this one is nice and obvious, 3 legs with the port obviously facing outwards, so that is going to slot into there. And that's going to look like that. So I'll solder the back and then we'll take a look at the next step. So this 2.1mm DC socket is actually lovely to solder because it's got some nice big connective points. So let's see if I can do the next one on camera. Let's just get that position so that the light isn't glaring everywhere. And here we go. So I do kind of want to put some pressure on this to make sure it's in position. So I'm going to hold it down, put a bit of pressure on there. Let's get some heat on. Let's get some solder on there. And there we go. A bit smoky, but that is a pretty tidy job, I would say. Just got the third one to do, so while we're here, let's get some heat on there. And there we go. Not bad, pretty good. And in terms of the board, it's starting to come together. So the next component I'm going to solder on is this, which is the bridge rectifier. Very clever, converts DC current into AC, or vice versa should I say. And we need to put the positive leg, which is typically the longer leg, you can see it's slightly longer. Let's position that into the board, so we should be able to see there's a positive mark there. So that long leg, I'm going to feed into there. And it's just a case of getting all the others in. It's a bit of a fiddle, but once you've got it, there we go. So we flip that over, and it's just a case of soldering that back side. Right, a bridge rectifier is in place. Lovely job, that one. 5 more components to do, including the 2 big capacitors, which I am leaving till last. Right, let's push on. So the next component we're going to add is this one here, which is a 1N5407 diode, and that's going to sit right in that place. Now, one thing I will note is that it does say D3 on the board. You can just about see it here up in the corner, but actually on the instructions it doesn't say D3, it actually is marked as D2. So you just need to check the actual diagram to make sure you're looking at the right component. We have a similar situation to the right over here where it says D4 for the LED, but the LED is actually listed as D1. That's fine, I've got the schematic so I can work this out. So we're going to put this diode in next. That's going to lay this way. You can see the grey band around the top, and that is denoted by this shape here on the board. And the wire legs on these are really quite chunky, as you can see. They're quite thick, so actually bending them into position was a little bit of a challenge. I would have liked to have had a bit of a tighter bend, but that's fine. The component is flat to the board, so I'm just going to get some solder on this top one here, and we'll go from there. Let's just get that into position. Right, that's going to want to tilt that way, so let's just do this carefully. Get some heat on the component, and let's get in that gap. There we go. And that's pretty tidy. Right, I'll go do this next one here, and then we'll come back and have a look at what's next. Well, just 4 more components to go. We've got the 2 capacitors here, we've got the green LED, and then last but not least we have the transistor. So I think I'm going to go transistor, LED, and finish with these 2 big guys right at the end. So just returning to the board to have a look, we have transistor section here, and you can see there's a hashed panel, and that in effect denotes the orientation of the transistor. So it needs to go in that way around, and it won't go any further because the actual legs are fatter. You can't quite see when it's not in focus, but fatter towards the top, so it will ultimately just sit in the top. If I get my thumb out of the way, it will sit just about there like that. It's going to be a bit of a fiddle, this one. May have to have a third hand. Right, so I have had to use some tools here in order to clamp everything in place, simply to keep the board in the right orientation with the transistor, such that I've got 2 free hands, one for the soldering iron and one to hold the solder. So you can see how this is all rigged up. I think I'm ready to go. I'm going to struggle to record this, so I'm going to do the soldering and I'll show you the result shortly. Apologies, I'm having to hand hold the camera in macro mode, but you can see I've soldered the left leg and the right leg, and I've just got the middle one to do, and I'm really anxious. This is the most anxious I've been with any of these components because these really are close together and there really is no room for mistake. So I'm going to see how I get on, and hopefully I'll be on for a winner, but let's see. And I tell you what, I'm really impressed with that, considering I've not done any soldering for, I would hazard 32, 33 years, maybe 30 years at a stretch. I'm really happy with that. I think, yeah, that's a great job. Right, 3 more components to do. We'll quickly get the LED in, and then it's down to the last 2 big capacitors. Okay, we are almost there. So I'm looking at D4, which is the LED. We have positive at the top and obviously negative at the bottom. And similar to other components, if I can get the camera to focus, let's just move this out of the way, you'll see that the legs on the LED are different lengths, and it's the long one here which is the positive. So that one will go to the top. So I shall just take that and poke it carefully, if I can get it through the hole. There we go. We don't need to go all the way down, but as long as it's in neatly. There we go. And so I just need to now solder those 2 legs there. Okay, so I'm clipped in again this time around just to give me an extra hand. I'm just going to pull my solder through, so I've got plenty available. Right, so I'm going to start with this leg first. Let's get some heat in there. And then when I feel happy, it's very finicky, very small component. Can't see. There we go, that's caught it. Okay, I dragged the solder up a bit then, but that's okay. Okay, I'm happy with that. So what I'm going to do is just, I think, come around to about there and hopefully not touch this rear leg. And we're going to come in right on there, heat up the contact. That's a much better one. A little bit more. Great. Give it a blow. I'm really happy with that. That's not bad at all. Yeah, I'm happy. Okay, last but not least then, we have these 2 capacitors. The positive leg again is the longer of the 2, and if you're not sure, in this case we have a very clear negative marking on the short leg side. So we know exactly how these components are going to go on the board. Long leg, and that's going to go into there. That's going to sit into the board like that. Great. Now I've just got to get it soldered. Okay, that's pretty much where I want it. So solder in hand, soldering iron ready. Doing this over the back of the camera. Let's get some heat onto the contact. I appreciate that the light is the wrong side. It's going to fill that hole quite quickly, so let's get a big dollop in there and then let go. There we go. That's not bad at all. Yeah, just give it a blow. Okay, I'm happy with that. I think I will just rotate the operation and then come in from this side right now. There we go. Second one done. Fantastic. One more of those and the job will be done. Last of all, we have the final component, which is another large capacitor. So we shall just bang some solder in there and then we're done. It's 1. Two. Finito. So there we are, 1 complete capacitor discharge unit. I really enjoyed making that. It's been a long while since I've done any soldering work, as I mentioned previously. What I will do is just make sure all the components are good. I'm a little bit concerned about that middle solder joint there on the resistor. It's a bit flaky. And also I just want to make sure obviously nothing's touching. Now it shouldn't do on a board like this. That's the closest one. Obviously we've got these two here, but they're okay. That's the LED. Everything else on top is looking pretty good. But yeah, great. Really enjoyed that. And I'm hoping that it works. So join me next time if you're interested to see if this does what it should. Well, there we go, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you found that useful. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you again real soon. Take care. Bye-bye.